Welcome to Neurodivergency, your space for raw conversations that break the stigma around mental health and all things neurodivergent transformation. Today's guest is Richard D. Waldman. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure being here.
Such a pleasure to have you. Can you give us a quick introduction about yourself? Who are you briefly?
Yeah, I'm a life coach. I'm a clinical pastor, speaker, author of Your Guide to a Better Way of Thinking, and I specialize in mental health.
Love having guests that are specialized in mental health. So before we dive into your story and your wisdom and everything that you've that kind of brings you to where you are today, can you paint us a picture of a time where life was not so great, where things were a bit more of a struggle, and what kind of got you here? What does life look like now?
Yeah, well, we'd have to probably choose every day for that matter, because life is a process. Yeah. How do I say? When you're younger, you're doing things, you don't really think about things. And later on, you start, having some semblance of what's going on. And I was involved. I had the fortune. I graduated college with a degree in accounting, and I had an opportunity years ago to actually teach a class on the financial calculator. It was a fluky thing. Well, that got me, how do I say, involved with professional education. It wasn't my plan, but I started getting involved, worked with several other people. We were creating classes for different companies. And part of it was continuing education. And so I loved it. I got involved with creating classes and doing different things like that. And then over the years, I started migrating into, how do I say, personal areas where I was helping people and go beyond just how to work the financial calculator. And I was fascinated by working with other people, and I've always been fascinated with the human condition, including my own. And so one thing led to another as I was getting more involved with personal coaching. Questions started popping up, Anthony. For example, why are we the only life form on the planet that destroys itself? Why is it we can be so extraordinary and at the same time confused, self-serving, and destructive? And I thought, wait, there's something going on here. I mean, for example, when COVID-19 hit, I mean, now it's all said and done, it affected about a little over 9% of the world's population. But when you come to mental health, we all suffer. We all suffer at different times, at different levels, over different things. Everyone on the planet suffers, and yet we know nothing about it. You pick any area of science, and chances are in the last 30, 50 years, we've learned something about it. When it comes to mental health, we haven't learned anything. Okay, metaphorically speaking, Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden for judging, blaming, hiding, and not being accountable. What's changed? Nothing. We're still judging, we're still blaming, we're still hiding, and we're still not accountable. And what? No one is asking why. So I one day I had a fantasy that somebody had come to me and said, Richard, we want you to create a class. Okay, on what? Well, mental health. Well, what respect? Well, it basically has to do with the question I had before. Why is it we can be so extraordinary and at the same time confused, self-serving, and destructive? So that set me on. And I thought, this can't be that hard, Anthony. We all suffer. All right, how hard can this be? And so I started getting into it, and the answers started revealing themselves. Well, mainly one answer is that we suffer because we have a highly creative brain that has the ability to create on its own. For example, psychologists will tell us that our self-image plays a critical role in how we think and behave. But then I began thinking about it, and I thought, well, I didn't create the image in my head of who I am. Well,
Hmm.
my brain did. And then I start looking around a little further. I learned that we have over 6,000 thoughts a day. Do we consciously think up these thoughts? Take time out to think them up? No. And what about those crazy and lopsided nighttime dreams that we have? Are we involved with that? No, we're sleeping. So
Hmm.
I'm going, oh, okay, all right, now we're on to something. So that got me going on the fact that our brain has the ability to create on its own. But unfortunately, Anthony, much of what our brain creates is out of sync with the rest of the universe. For example, if you just distorted psychological image that I have in my head, Sigmund Freud called it the ego, which is Latin for I, the self. And here's the thing that we don't realize. The ego, the self, is judgmental by nature, okay? Is judgmental. And judgment is the most destructive mindset you can have because you cannot have a negative state of mind without first being judgmental. You see where I'm going here?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
yeah, and so now because everything has a reason. Okay, and if something's happened, generally there's a source for it. All right. Well, and that was the other thing. Well, where's this coming from? It doesn't just show up. And so that's once again, I'm kind of going all over the place. Now, did you have a chance to look at my website on brainiites.com? Did you have a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I've had a look.
Oh, okay. Wait. Step one, anyway, goes over some of what I'm telling you in the background. And step two addresses what I created. That was the, how do I say, the fulcrum or the center of my theory concerning our brain being able to create on its own is called the order to life. Okay, can I show it to you now?
Well, I'd love to
What?
hear more about the challenges that you've experienced personally before diving deep into
Oh, okay.
what you've created as a result of it. So
Well,
can you
okay.
tell a bit more about the context behind what
Well,
led to
sure.
this?
Well, sure. Okay. It's very simple. I grew up in an environment, my mother was very judgmental and all these kinds of things. I hated it. And she judged everybody and there. As much as I hated it, I grew up like her. Now, I didn't do what she did, but I did it in a different way. And it was very destructive. And I can see where at times it got me in trouble. All this stuff, I was fearful. All these negative things, we have anxiety, fear, and all these types of things, which keeps us where we are. See, the chatter in our head, one of its goals is to keep us where we are. And so naturally, I kind of got to the point where I don't want to be judgmental anymore. I don't want to be fearful anymore. I want to be able to live a life where my mind is free and open. Okay, because when it's free and open, then I'm going to take in the rest of the world around me. For example, if my chatter is going and I'm talking to you, I'm probably not listening to you because I'm listening to the chatter in my head. All right, because I'm thinking about other things. So this is not any one thing, but it's more of a history of my type of thinking I had that was destructive and kept me where I was. Naturally, many times I wasn't getting what I want because I didn't know how to get what I want. I didn't know how to ask. I didn't understand what the theory of attraction was. So there was just a number of things, but it wasn't like any one thing, but a series of a lot of little things that built up over the years that caused me to, what am I doing? I'm not happy. Things are not working out quite the way I want. What is going on? So it was more of getting into the process itself of why things. I thought things could be better.
Yeah. What might someone be asking themselves or telling themselves, or how might they be thinking that kind of maps to your journey of how you were like before?
Well, it has to do with negative thinking. We all have negative thinking. We all have negative thoughts. And the question, where does it come from? Where does it emanate from? Well, it comes through the side of our personality that we've been educated to live through that doesn't work. And as far as the idea of this has been with us forever. I mean, you look at the story of Adam and Eve. It's probably it is the first story in the Old Testament. We have the tree of life and the tree of good and evil, symbolic of there's only two states of mind: peace and suffering. Peace and suffering. What do you want? Okay, it's like being a winner. Do you want to win or not? So I'm very, how do I say, through what I was, I'm very simplistic and I try to keep very simple because a confused mind says no. And I learned this through my teaching over the years. You can get the most complex thing, but there's a way that you still can explain it so a fifth grader can understand it. So I'm all about simplicity, brevity, getting to the point. taking responsibility. For example, I had to take responsibility for my thinking. I can't, blame anybody else, but I didn't know how. And so one thing kind of led the other and fostered another. And it's all about support. We could literally, Anthony, change the world right here, right now, if we did two very simple things. If we supported each other instead of judging each other. So that I'm
Yeah.
giving you a broad view, but that was my
Yeah.
stuff, just a lot of things along
Absolutely.
the, yeah, but it was,
Yeah.
anyway, that was my, go ahead.
Yeah. So Richard, what does life look like now after you've had a transformational journey and all the life experiences that you've had?
I'll say it in one word, fun. Let's have
Fun,
fun. Hey,
fun.
let's have fun. When I was in gymnastics, I was graduating in high school, and several of us were still working out. Okay, and a coach comes up and says, "Hey, you guys, you probably think we're in good shape, right? We're in, we're gymnasts. You probably think you're going to be able to do this stuff all your life. Oh yeah, coach, we feel great. We feel great." He says, "Let me tell you the day you're going to quit." I says, "Well, when is it?" He says, "When you walk into the gym and it's not fun anymore." But Anthony, isn't that true about everything? When a
Absolutely.
relationship is not fun, don't we quit? When our job's
Mhm.
not fun, don't we quit? We look at all these things, and then it's time to move on. If you're not
Yeah.
having fun, it's time to move on. And like they
Mm.
say, yeah. And one of the sayings I use that's involved with my order to life is I use this constantly. If you bring out what is within you, what you bring out will save you. If you do not bring out what is within you, what you do not bring out will destroy you. Bring out meaning you're having fun. Are you enjoying what you're doing? And if you're enjoying what you're doing, you can't fail. Now, there's times things may not work out. It's only because the universe is telling you, hey, you got to take a little direction here. The universe doesn't work in a straight line. Zigs and zags, it's up and it's down. But it doesn't mean it's bad because everything's always changing. The universe is always changing. It's always creating, it's always changing, and it's always in order. And that's kind of my role model. So as long as you're doing what you love and you're following it and you're learning, you're having fun, you're meeting the people, hey, what else is there?
That's it's a great space to be when we can be in alignment with our fun, our purpose, enjoyment of life.
Yeah.
That's yeah, super cool. And that's also where flow comes in. When we can find that flow states, we just get so intrinsically motivated by the activities we do, and we're generating all this internal positive chemistry that's really, really, really good for mental health and well-being. Um, yeah, so tell us a bit more about the journey you've been on. Like what were the major milestones, trainings, knowledge, experiences that you've gone through in order to get to this point?
Well, it's interesting. One of them is this is going to sound funny. When I started developing this theory, I was in south of San Francisco. I was in California at the time, and I was very excited. And I thought, Richard, go out and talk to some psychiatrists. I mean, people, that have degrees and stuff on all this. And no one wanted to talk to me. Yeah, I've been kicked out of more offices, pastors, ministers. On the flip side, because I believe that, well, it's true that today's psychology is an extension of yesterday's theology. Most of the principles I talk about originated not today, but thousands of years ago. Jesus said, seek the kingdom of God and it'll be added to you. Well, I get into what the kingdom of God is, but basically it's what I'm talking about. You're joyous, you're happy, you're empowering, and then people want to be around that. I mean, who wants to be around somebody or something that's low energy? I don't think anybody does because it's all an energy thing. And and so that has been my focus, staying positive, and I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. And to me, it's a very empowering thing. I love working with the human condition. There's nothing more
Mm.
exciting to me than that.
Yeah, you mentioned getting rejected from a lot of offices, getting kind of kicked out and all this. How does one stay positive and keep resilience in the face of rejection or adversity?
Well, I was fortunate enough. I was making appointments. One doctor, psychologist, he agreed to talk with me. He was very good. I was explaining, he says, Richard, you're onto something. He says, look, he says, you're not one of us. Okay, you have a degree in accounting. Okay, you're not a counselor. You're not you don't have a degree in psychology. We have nothing on our side of the fence. And so these people more than likely are resentful. Like, who are you who have no training in psychology or what come in our side of the fence and enlighten us about something that occurred to you? It's like, get out of here. You know, and so, and he said, stay with it. Stay with it. He told me stay, and I knew I was on. I knew it worked. I knew it worked. I've been working with it. As some of my clients I was developing, they related to it. They understood it, and so. But I kept in mind what he said. When you come outside of somebody's profession into another, and you're not trained in it, they're going to attack you. They're going to attack you because we all want to be right. And who's this guy coming in basically making you wrong for what you're doing, in essence, not making you wrong, but you know what I mean, finding fault that maybe what you're teaching is not the whole thing, or there's more to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to challenge the status quo. And I guess we've all got some degree of authority just by being human, like
Thank you.
having a brain. You don't need to have studied necessarily in certain things to have had the experiences that have shaped who you are today and why you think the way that you do. If you're an observer, which we all are to certain degrees, you can have faith in your own authority.
Well, you take Jesus. I mean, what training did he have? And then he became the Son of God, right?
Yeah, that's
in so many words. Yeah.
Yeah. So many directions that we can go in. What role does spirituality play in your vision of the world and perhaps in the field of mental health?
Well, it plays a very important part. Charles, I'm sure you've heard of Charles Darwin, the theory of evolution. He wrote okay. He was on, well, he was on it was called the Beagle, but the ship but he was in the Galapagos Islands, and he was making observations. He was a young man at that time, a naturalist, and he believed at that time that every form of life that we see is exactly how God created it. And so he's doing his things and he's going to, and on the islands, they had these finches. Well, on one island, the finches were different in a sense, their beak was structured differently. And he thought, well, why is this different? They look the same. And he started looking around. And he noticed there's these trees. It was on the island. And on these trees were these little nuts. And the birds, these nuts would fall. And the birds would then peck at the nuts to open them up to eat the seeds. And then he started thinking about this. He thought, the reason why they're different is when the birds started pecking and they kept pecking, the universe responded to them by reconfiguring their beak, which then turned it into a tool. The point is the universe responds to us and responds to us more, how do I say, is more active when we do something and stay with it. People say, don't give up, don't give up. And usually when we don't, there's a breakthrough. We stay with it. We stay with. So it taught me that how we act on the universe is responding to us right now. We're not aware of it. We don't think about it that much. We're not educated that way, but it is. But I'm very mindful of that. I'm very mindful of what I say, what I do, because there's a response going on. It may be how do I subliminal under the layers down and all these kinds of things. But I try to make people aware of what they're doing and what they're putting out, because the universe is responding to them. They may not see it immediately, but somewhere in their life, things are going on. So that's spirituality, absolutely. Well, that's a cosmic thing. That's spirit, right? Because it's not something. It's not tangible. It's of spirit. God or whatever. And people say, well, question God or whatever. Hey, if there was no God, how could the spider spin its web? How could the bird build its nest? Or how could the bee build its hive if there was no intelligence? Each one has, or you look at the common ant, it's been around for approximately 110 million years for one reason and one reason only. They work together. But there again, there's a form of intelligence that guides them. Now, how they communicate is chemically. It doesn't matter, but they communicate. But how does that happen? Some form of intelligence is driving all of this.
There is certainly a natural intelligence, that's for sure,
Yeah.
regardless of one's beliefs. Yeah, we can witness it in the power of our body to heal the cuts when we cut ourselves,
Mhm.
and so many, just our breathing and our heartbeats is automatic. We don't think about it. It's just running automatically. Um, so yeah, back to the mental health um, area.
Sure.
What's your relationship with neurodivergence, or what would you what's your story around it? What can you share?
Well, in terms, okay, when you, I'm going to make sure I'm clear. When you say neurodivergence, what exactly are you? How do you define it?
This is one of the interesting questions of our time, actually, because we've had a chat, and you've kind of examined the brain as a whole system, and kind of been moving away from
Okay.
labels. So neurodivergence, we'll say, is an umbrella of kind of brain varieties that are different than
Okay.
neurotypical, if we
Okay.
can use that binary model in
Well,
here.
as soon as I said divergence, I thought I should have thought about it. That tells me that when you diverge, you go into a different direction. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
neural would be is the fact that our brain has the ability to create on its own. I guess that's where the divergence occurs. Is being aware. For example, well, I'll show you in a minute here. My order to life. The first thing we need to be aware of. People say aware of what? Aware that our brain has well, back up. That our personality has evolved in more than one direction. Okay, so anytime I'm approaching something right away, okay, Richard, wait a minute. What side of your brain or your personality are we going through now? Is it the reactive side, the judgmental side, or it's the one you're going to take a moment here and think through what's going on? So being very aware because we've been educated to live through that part of our personality that's reactive. We don't think much. We stay stuff. We do stuff. And then later on, we think, oh my God, what did I do? What did I say? What did I create for myself? That's where the divergence occurs. In other words, well, I keep going back to my order to life. When I was developing this, the factors inside the circle move you forward. The factors outside the circle hold you back. And when I was developing this, I was, got into my own stuff. And my wife goes, Richard. I go, what? She says, are you in the circle? Or are you outside the circle? I go, you're right. I'm outside. Thank you. So my thinking had diverged from being in the moment, being where I needed to be to be thinking intelligent thoughts and how to solve things versus reacting and being crazy and worrying and upset. So understanding where that divergence happens, what causes that, and when it happens. So now I know when it happens. When that chatter comes up and it wants to take me in the wrong, that's where the divergent happens. When the chatter in our head, that's also the serpent that showed up in the Garden of Eden. And the reason why the chatter in our head was, how do I say, is a metaphor for the serpent, is because the snake is stealthy, it's quiet, it has come into our psyche, it speaks with a forked tongue and can be deadly. So,
Mm.
so I'm just aware. So I make people aware of what side of their personality are you coming from, and because right away it's very easy to detect. You know what? I'm coming from the wrong side. Yeah, I need to. I'm kind of repeating myself, but that's where the divergence is. Where
Mm.
do I go from thinking positively and the way I versus going crazy and reacting and all the other stuff that we all do.
Yeah. So some people who might be listening to this might struggle to believe that we can have this much awareness and control of our thoughts and our brain. They might believe in things like, I have such and such label or such and such disorder, and that means that I can't do that. or I do that differently and I'm unable to, or really thoughts and beliefs that might be limiting them and their experience of life. How, well, what would you go sharing with these kinds of people if you had to help them in their journey?
Okay, okay, I'm gonna give you a situation here. This is some years ago, and I have what's called WordPress. It's a software on my computer, and I had the WordPress fellow help me, do all this stuff. Well, he was leaving, he was moving, he's rich, I'm getting out of the business and all this stuff. I says, can you refer me to somebody? He goes, gosh, fish out, not offhand. So how am I going to find somebody? So I was talking to my wife. She says, what are you going to do? And I says, wait a minute, I got an idea. So there's a website called Meetup. So I went on Meetup and I put WordPress consultants, and this seminar was popped up in San Francisco for software developers. And I'm looking at it, it said 100 people have already registered. I go, I'm going to that. My wife says, well, isn't that for developers? I mean, you looking for, and he says, isn't it geared for, those people who are, technicians? And I said, yeah, but I got an idea. And she says, what is it? I said, to her, you're going to help me. She says, doing what? Well, she loved to work with paper and then things that pen and paper. I says, I want you to make me a sign. Okay. And what's this sign going to say? And can you see this, Anthony?
Mm-hmm.
See that?
Yeah, for those who are just listening, it says help seeking WordPress consultants. It's
Okay.
a little sign,
Okay.
square sign, very obvious.
Okay. So I says, and what are you going to do with this sign? I says, I'm going to put it around my neck when I walk into the seminar. Oh, you are? I says, yeah. So this is the sign. Bottom line, I got there. I put it on my neck. I walked in, Tony, and right away the eyes came to me and people are smiling. I didn't say one word. Within 5 seconds, there was a line of people giving me their cards. I didn't say anything. And so the question is, because, how do I get their cards? How do I meet them? The sign did all the work for me. The point of this, we're creative beings, and I love networking. And there's so many things that we can do that we would never think of. Now, how this came to me, I don't know. But if we network and we work with each other, like I said, the common ant, they've survived because they work together. We can figure things out, or we can get perspective. So the person that says, well, I can't this, as long as you think that, but you've got to start thinking positive someplace, sometime, or you'll never get out from what you're under. Now, what I teach is, it's not going to come to you all at once. And so and I'm not a perfectionist either, but everything takes practice, Anthony. I don't care who you are. Every professional athlete has a coach. Everything doctor practices before he operates on the patient with a cadaver. The attorney practices before he goes in the courtroom. Everything takes practice. So it takes practice understanding what is transpiring inside of our head or your head, and also how to respond to it. And the seminal thing we need to understand is that our brain is not our best friend. If nothing else, our brain is not. So when something that, wait a minute, I just heard my brain is not my best friend, and it's showing up, so it gives pause. So it's all about giving pause, take a moment, think through, maybe there's another way, maybe somebody else we can talk to. And the biggest thing, going back to what I said before, if we support each other instead of judge, is surrounding yourself with people that will support you. For example, whatever it is you want to do, go find out a group that's doing it. Go hang out with them. Go hang out. And there's a formula I use too. When you're in a new environment, new people, or you're new around these people, and you want to meet them, right away there's all this apprehension, but there's a formula to this: exposure, comfort, relationships, business. So in other words, if I came into a room and I'm talking to whatever, and someone says, oh, Anthony, he's the guy probably you need to talk to. He's the sharp one, or whatever it may be. Okay, so I mosey. Oh, hi, Anthony. My name's Richard, And we started talking this and that, this and that. And because my goal is I want to pick your brain. I don't want to tell you that, but I want to know what you know. And so but there again, if I can develop a relationship with you, maybe buying a cup of coffee, I meet with you again, whatever it is. And when I get to the point, exposure, comfort, relationships, business, who do we do business with? People we have relationships with. So I might say something like this. Uh, uh, um, Anthony, we've talked and I've got to give you an idea of who I am and what I'm doing and all these things. Let me ask you a question. If you were me and knowing what you know, what would you do if you were me, for me to get over on the side of fence you're on? What would you do right now, knowing what you know, if you were me to get where you are? Asking questions, not yes, no, but intelligent that require a response. But there again, how do you get in that position? You start developing relationships, and it's very simple in how you do it. And so that's the key is networking. Many times I've been with people and the answer's been right there. And they'll come up and say, well, Rich, what about this? I'm going, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? But sometimes we miss it. So just staying positive, but because you can't make any, create anything positive as long as you're sitting on the couch. You got to get up off the couch once in a while. So it's not hard. We make it hard because we've been educated to make it hard. Or there again, you may say to me, hey, I say, Anthony, I had an idea. I'm thinking about doing this and this and this and that. And you're going, Richard, come on. You can't do that. You don't have enough money. You're not smart enough. You've tried things like that before. You failed. Why don't you just kind of go back and do what you know what I mean? And so most people are not trained to support us. So it's always this negativity creeps in. So anyway, I'm kind of babbling here, kind of repeating myself.
That's all right. That's all right. What would you say is the number one tool that people can focus on in order to start mastering their brain?
The Order to Life, the circle I came up with, and let me know when it's a good time to show it, or kind of the sun's in your eyes.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, you're welcome to
Okay.
give a little demonstration.
And okay, this is on my website, Anthony. Okay,
Yeah.
on steps 1 and 2, I just want to say this. On steps 1 and 2, you'll hear me say various things. You can download the script. I posted the script of what I'm talking about on my website. So you can download the script. Okay. And so I explained, here's the Order to Life. And once again, you can download the script that explains this. But essentially, it's very, very simple. As I was going through this process, I thought, well, how can I put it in a form that people can relate to it? It's simple and easy, but I had to come up with what the elements were. So over time, I developed these. Okay, let's go inside the circle. Number 1 is awareness. Being aware that our personality has evolved in more than one direction. 2, staying present. The present moment is the only place where I can change. I can't change in the future. I can't change in the past. The present moment, the present moment and the chatter in my head cannot exist at the same place at the same time. The present moment is where you make intelligent decisions. Okay, next one is conscious choice. Thinking through what you might create if you act upon your current thinking. Thinking through what you might create. So when you're thinking things are not, you don't have what you want in your life or people don't want to hang with you, well, think maybe how you created that. And number 4, connecting to what it is that you love to do. If you bring out what is within you, what you bring out will save you. If you don't, it will destroy you. Okay, let's go outside of the circle. At the top is judgment. Once again, the most destructive mindset you can have, because you cannot have a negative state of mind without first being judgmental. Works in conjunction.
Sorry to interject, but just to clarify, is inside of the circle where you want to be and focus on what's good, and then outside of the circle is the negative that you want to avoid and like the flags that you're looking for.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So go ahead. First one was judgment. Outside of the circle.
And we all know when we're judging something. When I said very simple. Next time you have a negative thought, take a moment and ask yourself, what am I judging? What am I judging? Okay, then it works in conjunction with the chatter in your head. that has the evidence on the bottom. Hey, Anthony, remember the last time you failed? Remember this, remember that? And so it's got the evidence to show you why you can't do what you want to do. And then what do? We react. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I failed last time. Maybe I'll just kind of keep on doing what I'm doing and we'll call it a day. And so this is just a helpful reminder. What am I doing? Am I present? Am I connecting? Am I, so it's a very simple plan of action, a psychological roadmap that anybody can use if you're willing. But here again, too, you have to be willing to take responsibility for how you think, and stop blaming others and all these other things. And that's one of the hardest things for. I find, Jesus said, "Let those who are dying bury the dead." The dead meaning those you can't reach. We've all been in touch with those people. No matter what you say to them, you can't get through to them. It doesn't matter what you say. And those are the people who have died mentally and spiritually. Okay, once you recognize that, okay, you move on. You move on. But this has helped a lot because people can relate to this. And
Yeah.
the other important thing, as I mentioned, is simplicity, because a confused mind says no. A confused mind says no. Okay.
Can you share a story of someone that you've been able to help with this framework?
Oh, gee, but how about 2 days ago? I'm in the market. I get involved. Next thing I love visiting. Next thing I'm talking about this stuff, and I'm talking to this gal. We're talking, and one thing leads to another. We're talking about this. She says to me, Richard, she says, "There's something about myself I don't like," and I said, "Oh," I said, "What is it?" I can't remember what it was, but my first question said to her, I said, "Well, who in your family's like that?" She says, "My mother." I says, "Well, this is where we get it from. This stuff's is viral. Her mother got it from her. She's passing it down to you. And we unknowingly pass it down to our kids." She said, "I never thought of that." And it was, and when I mentioned to folks, when I say, the chatter in your head, right away, their eyes get real big. Oh boy, do I know it. It's been, it's been running me all my, and so when I tap into those kinds of things, it gets people's attention and they want to know more. Yeah, yeah. What can you tell me about it? Well, it wants to keep you where you are. You're right. Does this support you? Does it tell you how wonderful you are and how gifted you are? Of course not. It tells you everything you don't have. You're no good, And you go, you're right, you're right. Well, all we have to do is stop listening to that and start believing in, what you're here for. What do you love to do? Here's another example. Recently I had a fellow. He was helping me on a project here at the house, and one thing led to another. And he was telling me he has an autistic child, and he was telling me things, and not going so well. And he's like 8 or 9 years old, and I said, "I have an idea for you." And because autistic, they have a hard time expressing themselves and these types of things. I said, "Does he have a hobby? Is there anything he likes to do?" He says, "Yeah, he loves to paint." Okay, I says, "I have an idea for you. I'm in Florida. We have a lot of retirees. Not that you have to be in Florida, but I said, there may be painting clubs around. I would check that out, and and um, and have your boy attend one. And what it is, but you would have to set up your pins. In other words, once for example, you connect one, you want to find out, how it's run and all these kinds of things, and share with them that, I've got an issue. My son, he loves to paint, and, can I bring him over? Would you folks be willing to kind of work with me? Oh, yeah. Well, lo and behold, we hooked up a couple of weeks later. He says, "Richard, is working." And you know why? Because he's talking about what he loves to do, which is paint. So they're talking about painting, not about how you talk and how this or that, which the kid, which he's not, very well gifted at doing this at this point in time, but everything takes practice. But he found he's more willing to engage in conversations now. He's not afraid anymore because he's talking about what he loves. And they're asking him questions about what he loves. Hey, what are the colors? What made you come up with that? Hey, that's really good. And so these kinds of things, and I work with drug addiction, suicidal. I try to find the key is we protect what we value. We protect what we value. People who are suicidal no longer value life, And the main reason why, Anthony, is they've got so much pain, they can't stand it anymore. And it's one of the questions I will ask somebody who's suicidal. I mean, once again, exposure, comfort, relationships, business is that if you could get rid of the mental pain, would you still want to kill yourself? I'm kind of fast forwarding. They go, probably not. You have a family? Yeah. Do you love them? Yeah. You have kids? Yeah. You love them? Yeah. Wouldn't you want to be around them? Yeah. Yeah. But they realize it's the pain, but no one's taught them how to deal with it. And I've said, look, your brain is not your best friend. It's imposing this on you, and it's not you. See, that's the thing. Our brain is not us. And when these revelations come in, and because I was in the military too, and I understand some of the things they're talking about, and that the for example, when you're in the military, the camaraderie is so strong because all you have is each other. They say when you're in a war or a battle, the person you want to save is the guy next to you. Okay, and because the guy next to you, and he's saving you. So we look out for each other, not ourselves. You're taught that. Well, when they come back in society, it's all about ourselves. We don't look out for anybody. And so they come in, and now there's all this, how do I say, this camaraderie, this love, it's nowhere to be found. And so consequently, the pain starts coming in. I don't like this environment. And so once they realize, then they get the meds. And sometimes too, when talking to them about how the med affects them, I says, let me ask you a question. We talk about the chatter in your head. Does the med sometimes speed that up? Oh yeah, it does. Okay, well, that's maybe part of the problem because doctors don't always check on the patients as far as the effect it's having on them. So we have to be, not to make a pun, mindful of that as well. So once I start bringing out these different perspectives, they go, I never thought of this before. I didn't realize that my brain is not me. I didn't realize what my brain is doing to me. Yeah, I do want to live. Yeah. If I got rid of the mental pain, I think, I don't want to die. And same with drug addiction. Same with drug addiction. They value drugs because they have nothing else going on in their lives. But if you can find something for them that they can, that they like and turn on to, and they're, chances are over time, if they want to protect that, they're going to give up the drugs because the drugs is stopping them from preventing them to do what they love. So you see what I'm saying? So it's helping people find a path forward. And one of them is knowing what somebody values, because we'll protect what we value.
You mentioned a couple of times that we are not our brain. I have two questions along that. What would you say we are, and how do you help people connect to that?
What we are is spirit. What we are is spirit. And going back to theology again, and I mentioned, Jesus mentioned, he talked about seek the kingdom of God, seek the kingdom of God, and it'll be added to you. Now, the kingdom of God appears in the four Gospels more than 80 times. It's probably his most favored topic. But yet, when you ask somebody, I don't care who it is, a pastor, minister, anybody, who says they love Jesus, I said, well, are you doing what he says we should do? What do you mean? Well, he says there's the first thing we should do, which is seek the kingdom first. Are you doing that? No. You know what the kingdom is? No. Well, nothing personal. I mean, I'm being kind of forward here. Well, how can you say you're a follower of Jesus if you don't do the very first thing he tells you to do? You see what I'm saying? So bottom line, so I started getting in, I started thinking, gee whiz, if I was, what would the kingdom of God look like? And I came up with this. And it's a chapter in my book. Is it just real short? Can I read it? Is it okay?
Read a snippet. Okay.
Yeah, it's real short. And the title of the chapter is Be Perfect. And it's a conversation between two individuals. A perfect state of mind is your gateway to the kingdom of heaven, said Noah. But what does the kingdom of God look like? Replied John. Picture, if you can, an inner calm so complete that nothing is wanting. There are no internal or external conflicts. It's a non-judgmental condition that's passionate about creating, open to change, and an order. It's called perfect because mental perfection is in harmony with God, where all things are added to you. Added to you in what way? Asked John. Is your body at ease? Is your mind free to think of wondrous things when you're anxious or upset? Will others invite you to break bread when you judge and curse them? No, no, a point like that, no, a mind like that's a state of mind like that wouldn't attract anybody or anything. But it doesn't seem fair, Noah. Having to monitor what God gave us is like buying a new car that constantly needs tuning. You're right. Our brains do require attention, and it's our job to keep them serviced. So,
Yeah. So really the constant journey of going through that circle, that cycle of
yeah,
awareness and keep coming back to presence and
it,
yeah,
it, it,
reshaping little
it,
by little.
it doesn't take long before it kicks in. They start, okay, this makes sense. It doesn't take long before this thing starts kicking in and they start, okay, well, they're instead of reacting, well, let me think about this first. I tell some, if you, anytime you have a negative thought or want to put it out or, how do I say, get after somebody, give it give it 24 hours. Give it 24 hours. And nine times out of 10, people say, you know what, I'm glad I gave it time. I wouldn't say it today now. Yesterday I would have, but now no. Yeah, I can see that I would have caused more pain than how do I say more comfort in me that I thought I would create, but I wouldn't have. So it's just giving pause. And once again, our brain is not our best friend. This is not rocket scientists. You are not your brain. And so if you can start creating a many times we don't always need a step to get where we want to go. Sometimes all we need is a little ledge to put our foot to get us to that next place where I can reach it. We don't have to have that big step. So if you if you can just take that little edge, just take that little step first. Just take it. And then one thing after another. So it's just staying with it. Yeah. Don't allow your brain to confuse you because a confused mind will always say no. And so it's just practice. Start, am I in the circle? Am I out of the circle? Am I judging or am I not judging? Am I being positive? Am I bringing out what is with me? Or, so it's just these very little, very, very simple dynamics to be aware of that keeps you, kind of going, keeps you on course.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, since you guys have helped people who are struggling with suicidal thoughts and addictions, how long would it take to get them on a path to break free from that? And there could be a range, but of course,
Oh, it's hard to say, because everyone's got their own path,
yeah.
and also I remind them, look, masterpieces take time. Don't,
Hmm.
there again, don't judge that you're not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
This is not a race. This is not a race. The
Mhm.
important thing is that you're at peace with yourself. I say, look, for example, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the room. And when I'm in an area that I don't understand, I many times have to ask over and over and over and over. And I'll share with some, I don't care how many times you have to ask me. Let's go over it. There's times where I have to hear it over and over. And we learn through repetition. But there
Mm.
again, somebody has to know that, hey, but I can go back to Richard and I can ask him a million times and he would never, ever judge me or think ill of me or I'm not very smart. Never. He would never do that. And I always allow people the space they need to do
Mm.
what they want to do because there's no shoulds. We're all created differently. We all learn differently. We all have different, how do I say, talents that others don't. And so it's just being mindful, being patient, uh, these kinds of things and when working with people and let them operate in the space that they need to operate in. I mean, who am I? Because otherwise I'm judging them.
Yeah. Yeah, really to keep anchoring into the space of being free from judgments is really healing, whether that's facilitated by someone else that we are interacting with, or whether we are able to do that with ourselves through the self-talk and the repetition. Yeah, and I'm sure it, yeah, leads to lasting changes.
And here's another thing I want to bring up. It's really important. There's four aspects to the ego. Okay, actually needs of the ego. The ego has four needs. It wants us to fulfill, and we do. One, the ego wants us to project the image to the world of who our brain thinks we are. hey, look at me, look how wonderful I am. Okay. The need to be right, to need to be right. Yeah,
Mm,
and if I can make you wrong, it makes me right. And don't we like to be right? And don't we, in a way, kind of make others wrong for what they do or whatever they say? And the third one is, and these are not in any particular order, is control. Don't we like to control things? Don't we like to control other people? And the last one is the ego is never, never accountable. Once again, it
mm,
wants us to promote the image of who our brain thinks we are, wants to be right, wants to be in control, but is never, never accountable. Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because they weren't accountable. God said, look,
mm.
I gave you, okay, real simple. What's changed? Nothing.
So how do we reshape our thinking about the ego? Now we know its needs. Now we know where to be inside the circle and what to watch out for outside the circle. But how do we actually do this
Well, you do it.
on a
Well, let me
day-to-day
ask,
basis? I mean,
well, it's almost like you run into a rattlesnake. Okay. You don't really have to understand what it's about. All you know, you need to know is you better not touch it. You better not go there because it'll kill you. All right. The ego is, I call it radioactive. The ego is because, and when you're around radiation, you die from it. All right. It's radioactive and you don't want to be around it. So once again, these are real, well, once people can identify, where it is and what's going on, then they're halfway there. It doesn't take much, but there again, too, you have to be in that mode to want to change. Now, I've had people say, Richard, I'm afraid of changing. And what do you mean? And one fellow said it this way. He says, I hear what you're saying. It sounds really good and exciting, but I'm fearful. I said, well, what? Well, if I'm kind of got my act together, I'm afraid people are going to start asking me to do things for them or do things. And I said, what? Well, yeah, I because he's kind of how do I say uh, he feels protected, when no one's bothering. He's afraid somebody can step in his space. I said, look, no one can harm you unless you give him permission. And so we started role playing how what he could say or how he responds to, hey, no, hey, I might say, gee whiz, Anthony, that is a great idea. I really, really appreciate that. But just for me at this point in time, I think I feel a little bit more comfortable maybe going this way. But that's a great thought. And I'm going to hang on to that right now. Would that be
mm,
okay? So there's ways you can handle things. In other words, you don't have to go there. You don't have to make them wrong. You get permission and you excuse yourself. That's it. And once they
yeah,
learn that, yeah. Oh, and then they feel, hey, I'm in power. And now I'm not worried about someone's step coming into my space. I now know how to protect myself. And without
mm,
getting upset, angry, calling somebody names, I'll never go there again. All these kinds of things, which once again keeps us where we are.
yeah. Interesting. It's almost like parts work, but applied to oneself through
Yeah.
self-awareness, self-love, self-talk kind of philosophy, um, and with a bit of a spiritual connection as well to connecting to our essence, which is beyond the ego.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, there's like I say, there's a higher power. The
Mm,
universe is intelligent. We're not. We hear about dark matter, and they call it dark because you can't see it. It doesn't reflect light. There's dark matter, dark energy. Well, there's
mm,
dark intelligence. Every form of life is plugged into this intelligence at
yeah,
some level somewhere. Because you look at every bird, they don't make their nest the same. Each one has a different kind of a nest. Well, what caused them
absolutely.
to diverge? Well, because of the intelligence they're receiving.
Yeah,
It's a different frequency. They're different.
yeah,
Yeah, it's intelligence, but it's a little bit, it's slightly different, which causes them to make a different
mm,
nest, something like that.
yeah.
But yeah, so
So what you're saying here is divergence is great. We should actually embrace it and kind of transcend the limits that we perceive because it's all just self-talk almost. Like we're all as we are for very good reasons, and that is from the intelligence of the universe, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. Well, I don't know if you heard this before, and this is on the internet. It says that the odds of you and I of someone being alive, a human being on this planet, the odds are 400 trillion to one. And so
Mm,
someone who's not, how do I say, they're not enjoying their life or whatever it is, they're having issues. Is my statement to them is, look, you beat the odds. You beat the odds. You're here. You have
Yeah.
life. You have freedom. You go to a store, buy whatever you want. I mean, look at it. I said, do you still want to piss it away? Look at what you have.
Mm.
And people, there again, they don't never consider that perspective. God, that's a good point. I have
Yeah.
life. What am I going to do with it? Are you going to be,
Yeah.
are you going to add, help others in how do I say, add to their lives, in other words, or are you going to, be condescending and negative? So it's just a question that, but you have life. What are you going to do with it?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Richard, as we wind down towards the end of the podcast, what's something that you haven't mentioned yet that you'd like to say to the audience? Any last messages or key takeaways?
Just keep on keeping on. Just number one, be happy. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Go out there, enjoy life. Let your mind be free. Let your mind be able to take in what's around you. That's it. Just and be grateful. Be grateful. You're here. You made it. You beat the odds. You have life. You get up, walk around. My God, what else is there?
Amazing. Yeah, the power of gratitude.
Oh,
It is time tested and validated spiritually and scientifically. So good. Um, Richard, thank you so much. Obviously, your biography and any relevant links are gonna be in the show notes. Is
okay.
there where should people go if they want to connect with you?
Well, my website is Brainyites, Brainyites, Brainyites.com. And what Brainyites, we're in the process of developing it. It's an identification. In other words, if you say that you're a Brainite, okay, and I know I have an idea now based upon the circle of what your state of mind, what it looks like, meaning the circle. I'm a Brainite. I know where you're coming from then. I know you're not judgmental. I know you're about being present. So we're
Mm,
involved with developing that. So if you say I'm a Brainiac, I know where you're coming from. Hey, it sounds like maybe you're the kind of person I want to connect with because you're not going to judge me. We're going to be talking about great things. We're going to, moving, all that kind of stuff. So that's important. That's important. I guess know who you're dealing with because there's people. Well, and I don't want to talk, but they'll suck the energy out of out of you, and we tend to hang out. In other words, I realized there was a point in my life where I had no direction, and you hang out with those people. How do I say? You where they buy your BS and you buy theirs. You know what I mean?
mm,
You buy their stuff. It's garbage, but that's all we know how to talk about because we have nothing going on in our lives. So we talk about junk, right? Judgments and all this other crap. So anyway, just
yeah.
not getting caught in that loop of that circle. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, moving away from the judgments and
right.
into the self-awareness, the presence, staying inside the circle.
And
Sounds like a
finding what
beautiful philosophy.
Yeah, and finding what you love. I guess that's the main thing again that keeps you on point. If you can find something that sparks you, you're a lucky person.
Amazing. Richard, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, your inspiring story, and your practical tools and frameworks. Yeah, thank you for being a great
Thank
guest on
you.
this podcast.
All right, go out and get them. You got it. Thanks.